You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. All right, straight into it. Start with the red. FA Cup weekend. I think the magic of the cup was there for all to see. We'll start maybe with Chelsea first. Wasn't very magical yesterday evening for them. 4-0 defeat to Manchester City. Some of the puns going around in the office this morning, Ger, related to Graham Potter and of course his namesake Harry Potter. So there were a few magical puns doing the trick. Phil Egan's effort was Potter in serious trouble. Sirius, of course, being Sirius Black, Harry Potter's uncle in the movie and book franchise. Cameron's effort, I think, was Harry Potter and the Half-Baked Blues, or Graham Potter and the Half-Baked Blues. Of course, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince being one of the books. And then, of course, Tommy Tuchel being he who shall not be named. Tommy Tuchel and Voldemort having that in common. And the Chelsea fans were singing about Tommy Tuchel yesterday in the stands as Graham Potter had to sit there and listen. It was a bit awkward. But the performance from Chelsea, regardless of the result, clearly a 4-0 defeat is not good any time, but it just wasn't a great performance whatsoever. They're out of the cup now. It would have been nice for them to have a little bit of a cup run to distract them from the fact that they're 10th in the Premier League, 10 points off the Champions League spots. Pep Guardiola came out after the match yesterday evening and was very defensive of Graham Potter. Said stick with him. It takes time for managers to build these teams. He spoke about the time he was given time at Barcelona, but he had, of course, a little man called Messi in that team, so it was maybe a little bit easier for Pep Guardiola. But roundly booed the Chelsea players and Potter, of course, at half-time, and for the fans that were still there at full-time, because let's be honest, a lot of them had left to try and get the train back. But yeah, it was just... There was even sarcasm from the fans yesterday. If anyone was watching the game, you could hear the echoes of shoot, because they just wanted even shots, the Chelsea fans. They weren't getting anything in the match last night. City were too good for them. This was a City without with their main men, Haaland included. So you'd be concerned if you were Graham Potter.
Front of the Indo sports section, Curse of Chelsea now haunts Potter, and that's basically the headline on Eamon Sweeney's piece.
The Harry Potter link.
Bowley makes bad situation far worse at the bridge. He's blaming Todd Bowley for coming in and appointing Graham Potter. Potter's appointment was celebrated in some quarters across Channel because it gave an English manager a rare opportunity at a top club. But Chelsea have been down this patriotically minded route before. It failed with Frank Lampard and it will fail with Potter. The sad truth is that putting an English manager in charge of an elite team is like sending Father Dougal Maguire to do a funeral. Chelsea's current manager is doomed as a teenager in a slasher movie who volunteers to go outside and check the noise coming from the woodshed. He's loving it. He's feeling himself here. Like Moyes at United and Nuno at Spurs, there's no prospect of this appointment ending in success. The only question is, when will the axe fall? Bowley should take Macbeth's advice. If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. So I like that. I like the Father Dougal at the funeral. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think all English managers are always doomed forever to be as incompetent as Dougal or the teenager in the slasher movie. I'm not sure that their nationality is the thing that prevents them from being good managers. I just want to put that on the record there for all our English viewers this morning. I don't think Potter's track record should prevent him from being the manager at Chelsea if Chelsea do have a long-term plan. That seems to be what the story is with the transfers they're making. But it's hard to discern a pattern in the transfers that they're making. It's very scattergun.
Yeah, and even the way Benfica have come out and claimed they were disrespectful in the whole Enzo Fernandez chase as well. Is this a surprise, the whole Graham Potter thing? Like, when he joined from Brighton, were we all not like, well, this could go very badly? Things are going well at Brighton. You could stay there and continue a great job. Yes, it's very, very hard to turn down a job from the big six, I guess, in Chelsea being one of them. So I understand why Graham Potter took the Chelsea job. But in hindsight, because a lot of Chelsea fans didn't really want Tommy Tuchel to be sacked, so it was a poison chalice to some degree. I honestly thought Potter would be up to it.
It's a poison golden chalice that gives gold coins out, little ducats, little gold ducats every day.
That adds the pressure, though,
for the rest of your life. But like, he can... I presume he negotiated a relatively good contract because it's a very long-term contract, right? Yeah. And so therefore, like, you can't turn down. You win the lottery when you get this job, and he can go off and work for the FA if he needs to as an underage manager at some point. Like, there's loads of routes for him to parlay this experience into something good and better afterwards. I mean,
I'm not sure about the point there about English managers not being fit to.
No, I think that, like, I mean, at the same time, it is interesting that this football culture has yet to produce a slew of brilliant, progressive young managers. Maybe Eddie Howe is going to buck the trend.
Yeah, is Gareth Southgate now one as well?
Is he?
What, bringing England to a European Championship final or 2 World Cup?
One
World Cup semi-final, sorry.
Bringing the country with the most registered footballers to a position where they're competitive in international tournaments. I think until Southgate proves that he's a brilliant manager and wins something, I hate to be
was a penalty shootout from winning the European Championship.
Journalism only, you know, but the team didn't play brilliantly, did they, across the course of that? Like, has he managed to unlock this gifted generation actually performing in all the big games? I don't know. I'd say Southgate is good, not great, and grand, right, at this stage. Eddie Howe has the potential to be really good, I think. I don't think his Englishness is preventing him. I think Potter's circuitous route to get to the Brighton job proves that he's got an interesting take on things. And if he was an international manager coming from a different culture, everybody would be like, oh wow, look at what he did. He went off and studied things that were separate to what he was doing. So, you know, you can carve this any way you want. Like, the injury profile of the team at the moment is really bad. If they get some of those players back, if Todd Bowley is too shamed to sack him, then maybe he'll have an opportunity over the next 4 months to try and turn things round, and we'll see next season if Potter is still there after they've spent another $250 million in the transfer window in the summer, what the truth is about Chelsea. I think you've also included Aston Villa here. I mean, that's just
we got to throw it in, Ger.
Contributing to the magic of the cup. Taking one for Team FA Cup there, lads. When the draw, I saw on Twitter.
Come on, don't.
I saw on Twitter that the draw was made for the 4th round, and I was like, Villa are through to the 5th round of the FA Cup. This is great. Beat Stevenage today. Go to Stoke, no problems, and then 5th round of the FA Cup. That'll feel like a big game. That'll be great. So if I was as complacent as that, then presumably when Villa saw the team that was named, they were like, oh, we're just going to show up and batter these today, aren't we?
Yeah. And for anyone who's the eagle-eyed OTB AM viewers this morning will notice Ger is donning his claret and blue, perhaps by accident this morning, perhaps in
getting
support.
dressed in the dark.
Exactly. But I mean, it's just not good, is it? Villa brought some of the big guns off the bench. They had a strongish starting team.
They
as well.
finished with fairly close to
perfect team.
Well, you know, maybe if they'd pick the goalkeeper who needs game time.
Do you know what I think Villa need? Harry Maguire. Potentially.
Yeah.
These rumours have been doing the rounds of the weekend. Doesn't seem to be any truth to them.
No, there's no truth in them.
No. Would you not have Harry Maguire at Aston Villa, Ger?
So should we help a massive club make up for their mistake by saddling ourselves with the wages that they have overpaid this guy who is nowhere near worth what they paid for him? Yeah, that's a great idea.
But
look, we've just been exactly the same with Philip Coutinho. How's that working out?
His transfer fee would be drastically reduced.
I mean,
you wouldn't.
Presumably, it's on loan. And there's no fee, because if there is, you're like, okay, stupidity here. Like, Villa need to be looking at what Brighton are doing and what that tier of clubs who have good, successful recruitment, where they're buying directly from South America or they're buying directly from second tier Spanish and Portuguese football, and they're giving players game time, and then those players are becoming seasoned internationals, and then they're suddenly worth 70-80 million, as opposed to taking second-hand cast-offs of failed players from big clubs who are already on massive wages, which is what they've done. They're paying Luca Dean apparently 170, 180 grand a week. What the hell's going on?
It's a bit mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit mad, but it's not as mad as Chelsea. These things are not the same.
Don't be hiding this now.
These things are not the same.
I thought I was watching Sheffield Wednesday, Newcastle the other night, and really enjoying it. And I was thinking, this is the story of the 3rd round. Newcastle being knocked out, the Saudi-backed Newcastle being knocked out by Wednesday, and then League 2 Stevenage. And JP Wright has said it in the YouTube comments already. Watching Aston Villa implode was the magical cup moment of the weekend. This means the FA Cup is back, Ger. So here's a stat for you. A record-equaling number of Premier League clubs since the league's inception in 1982 are now guaranteed to suffer early elimination in this season's competition. The cup is back, baby. We love the FA Cup. Wolves Liverpool was another one as well. And Unai Emery's a cup specialist. Hasn't he won the Europa League and a number of occasions?
I know.
As well?
That's exactly why I was thinking this is our route into winning the Europa League next season. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah. And apparently Emery had really been targeting this game, and I saw a dig. It was a fantastic dig from Stevenage on Twitter. So 66 minutes, the Stevenage Twitter account is live tweeting the match. They say 66 minutes, Philippe Coutinho comes off. The substitution took longer than usual as they had to dig him out of Luther James Wilden's back pocket. So, I mean, Stevenage not only into the fourth round against Stoke, but they're really going for it on social media.
Villa,
as well.
Villa are not going to be relegated, which, under Stephen Gerrard was potential, and so therefore it's not a completely lost season, but it felt like a cup run was there for them. The draw was really opening up for them. Loads of good teams are going out who, you would have expected maybe would have been better than Villa in a cup, and it's really bad. It's a really big setback this early on in what has so far been a relatively straightforward and good. Oh, it looks like there's a grown-up in the room, but just completely underestimated the challenge of Stevenage. So that's bad. But it's not as bad as Chelsea.
No, maybe not. Yeah, fair. It is fair. It's
what a bad read. There you go.
So that's in the red. Chelsea and Villa after their FA Cup exits over the weekend. Also in the red, and I'm getting a sense of deja vu here, Ger, I don't know about you, is Ulster Rugby. Not sure what to say, because if you'd said before the weekend that Ulster would get 29 points on the board over in Italy, you'd think, okay, that's grand, they must have got a decent win. But they lost 31 points to 29 for Benetton in the URC at the weekend. Ulster's 5th loss in 6 games, the first time the Italians have beaten an Irish province since 2017, so it'll show you the difficulties they've had against some of the Irish teams. Michael Lowry had a score and penalty tries. Well, later on you're thinking Ulster are going to do this, it's going to be fine, they're going to get the result, and really, after the performances of late and the comments from Dan McFarlane, you're thinking, just get the result. Win this by a point or two, move on, and they can at least get a bit of hashtag momentum and take it with them. But yeah, dying moments of the game, Benetton awarded that penalty, Cooney caught offside, Smith accurate with the boot, game over, and a 2-point defeat for Ulster. And if you look at their fixtures now, they have a very, very tough couple of weeks, Ulster. Back-to-back Champions Cup games against La Rochelle and Sale. I mean, do you really want that after the...
Will they score
That's
against
the
La
problem.
Rochelle?
Yeah, this is the thing. In France too, isn't it, that game as well? So the comments from McFarland, he probably learned from last weekend as well. He was maybe holding back a little bit. He said, we stuck in there, we're not playing as well as we can. It's not quite ticking for us as a team. Quite a few errors in the first half, similar to last week. And then he's saying the usual stuff. We need to be more productive with the ball. We're giving chances in the opposition third. And, good opposition are going to take those chances. Benetton took enough of them to get over the line. You'd imagine La Rochelle and Sale, if Ulster pass up that amount of chances against those two in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be hockey scores, or cricket scores. Hockey's not that high scoring a sport.
They will be hockeyed. It will be.
They will be hockeyed.
Score.
Exactly.
There
Thank you, Ger, for
fix that.
Yeah, fixing me. So yeah, you'd be concerned, I think.
This is full blown crisis territory.
Yeah.
This is a shambles. This is very difficult. This is at the end of the season where, you're having your end of season review and your KPIs are all there on the dashboard, and someone's going, "How do we do?" It's like, well, apart from the bit where we went to Italy, everything was okay, because it's just very difficult to recover from this, right? And if it was a one-off, you'd be like, okay, that's an aberration. But can they blame the travel chaos for this? Can they? Is there a ready-made excuse? Because we went from it was really difficult for them because of the travel to actually there's a pattern emerging to now
I think people wanted to make excuses for them because, especially the Ulster fans, are like, well, there has to be a reason for this. The performances have dropped off so badly. Whatever about the results, forget about the results for a minute. The performances have dropped off so badly that the supporters must be thinking there has to be something going on behind the scenes we're not aware of. Now, maybe there's a couple of injuries. Maybe the team just aren't focused at the moment. Maybe the travel chaos didn't exactly play into their hands. But you have to look at it.
Maybe there's something rotten in the culture.
100%. But that's like, if they lose heavily to La Rochelle and Sale, which, by the way, is a distinct possibility in both games. What do? You rarely see in rugby teams being, managers being switched mid-season. Doesn't seem to happen to the same extent as football.
Well, Dan McFarlane seemed to be getting to grips with the problems, and so I think it might be interesting to hear what he has to say, because if he's calling the players out last week, I still don't really understand. So apparently neither Connacht nor Ulster made a play for Ben Healy. So obviously, I don't know, again, not to reopen that whole thing, but would he not have been somebody? Who are the players who are setting the tone and setting the culture and the high performance aspect of what Ulster Rugby are trying to achieve at the moment? And if those players are being given the freedom to call everybody out who isn't matching that, then great. But if there's a core of players who are being protected somehow by the coach, who are responsible for what's happening, then the coach has to go. But they need to. I would say, have a full and frank review, and the coach may be part of the solution as opposed to just expecting somebody, a messiah figure, to come in and fix what appears to be a rotten culture.
Yeah, and it is statistically the worst runs since Dan McFarlane took over in 2018. If you're to pick any positives out of the Benetton game, it's that they came back well. They were 28-15, I think, down at one point in the second half. Came back to lead 29-28. And that showed a little bit of character, and Dan McFarlane referenced that after the match. The problem was
then choked.
Yeah, the individual error then leads to a penalty for Benetton, and it's game over. They pick up 2 losing bonus points. If you want to look at that as something to grab onto, which they should.
You know, they're still 4th on the table.
Yep, which isn't bad.
And there's the prospect of postseason, and obviously there's qualification for next season to be at the moment, the run of form that they're on. I don't think you're backing them against anybody, are you?
No, but right, they're in such a terrible run that La Rochelle, one of the top teams in Europe. Now, the answer to this might seem obvious, but is that the team maybe you want to play heading into a weekend like this? You're like, right, well, the pressure's off.
The only hope is that La Rochelle are looking at this going, I mean, we can put the B team out here, lads, and it's still going to be grand.
Bit of complacency.
Lads, it's Ulster.
Yeah, Ulster have become the Tottenham of the URC. Or worse, potentially. The performances just aren't good. I'd like to see them get over the line in one of those games.
Like the game that they won against Connacht on the 23rd of December, which a lot of people won't have seen because it was 2 days before Christmas, they nearly managed to cough up a winning position in that one, where Connacht scored 2 tries from the 78th minute on and miss a kick for that to be a draw. And if they hadn't had that victory, then we're in full-blown crisis mode. But like, we shouldn't let the missed kick camouflage the fact that they gave up that winning position when the game was won and it was completely over with 3 minutes left to go. So who's responsible? Is it the CEO at Ulster? Is it the IRFU further up? Like, ultimately, there's a lot of money going into that. There's really good players there, we think. Unless we're completely wrong about the quality of those players, particularly in that backline, for example, then something has to change. Who's deciding what that culture is in Ulster Rugby at the moment, and who is responsible for it? But it looks like it is rotten from the inside, and something significant has to change.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this with Quinny in a little while, but if you're an Ulster Rugby fan, we'd love to hear from you, because we were getting a lot of criticism for not doing enough on Ulster Rugby. Happy to talk about it now, if you want us to.
Yeah, absolutely. And
let's be having you, as Delia says.
They'll be hoping it won't be a 39-0 against Sale the next time as well. So, yeah, a lot to... And I think, look, performances will matter in those 2 games as well. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks with Ulster. In the Amber, very briefly we'll mention the snooker, of course. Ali Pali has been completely transformed, Ger, from the darts into a snooker cauldron. So the Masters, one of the 3 major tournaments, the Triple Crown events, along with the UK Championship and the World Championship, is back. And Dublin's own Sean Murphy, or the shock win, the Rathfarnham man, of course living in Dublin now with his Irish wife. Big win for him yesterday evening, 6-4, or yesterday afternoon rather, in the Masters over in London. Played really well. Sean Murphy. Now the thing I would put alongside this, an asterisk, is that Neil Robertson, the defending champion who he beat, was very sick. If you listen to the interview with Neil Robertson afterwards, he wasn't well at all. He was coughing, he was spluttering, he didn't sound good. He said he'd spent a week and a half in bed over Christmas, his wife having to take care of the kids and stuff while he got a bit of rest before this tournament. Had a 147 attempt at one of the frames, Neil Robertson, that kind of broke down. The crowd kind of spurred him on a little bit, but it wasn't enough. Sean Murphy's already won this event. He won the Masters in 2015. Breaks of 98, 53, 61 and 100, and then sealed the victory to win at 6-4, so he moves on to the next round. It's only, of course, the top 16 players in the world in the Masters. And then yesterday evening, another surprise result. So the 2 games yesterday were both surprises. Hossein Vafai, the Iranian player who was only brought into the Masters because of the Chinese match-fixing allegations, beating Mark Selby 6 frames to 2, the three-time Masters champion. So 6-2 it was a very one-sided game, 2-all at one point, but the Iranian pushing on. He'll now face Murphy will now face either Karen Wilson or Stuart Bingham, and Vafai will play either John Higgins or Jack Lasowski in the last 8 on Thursday. So first time at this event for Hossein Vafai. No strain to the big occasion. He's got the better of Selby before, at the last 3 meetings, in fact, the Triple Crown event. So he's a bit of a bogey player for Mark Selby. I've only put Sean Murphy in the Amber because big win for him, big shock beating the defending champion, but he still has plenty more to do. He's only into the last 8. So decided to put Sean Murphy into the Amber this morning.
All right, on to the green.
Yeah, onto the green. We've got the Club GAA. Not sure if I've ever said this on air, but Malachy O'Rourke is one of the greatest managers there's ever been in any sport. And if I haven't said that, I'm gonna put that on record right now. Not to remind people, not to brag or anything, but I did say Glen would win the All-Ireland Senior Club Championship. This was in the very early stages up in Ulster. This was while Kilcoo were still hanging around, with Mike Cullen to come in the All-Ireland semi-finals. This Glen team are too good. And I haven't changed my mind. I actually think they will beat Kilmacud. If they play to their capabilities, I think Glen will beat Kilmacud in the All-Ireland Club final. Which, look, seems remarkable, because when Malachy O'Rourke took over a couple of years ago, they had never won a Derry Senior Championship. Never mind an Ulster. Never mind an All-Ireland. The man, as I said, touches gold with everything he goes near. Their work rate, their character yesterday against Mike Cullen was brilliant. 4 points to no score after, 10 minutes. Got out of the blocks quicker. Their midfield, Conor Glass leading the way for them, as he usually does. Tiernan Flanagan with the goal at the start of the second half was kind of the turning point for them, and in many ways killed off the challenge of Mike Cullen, although it was only 2 points in it at the end of the game. The worry for Glen before the match was that they had a 4-week break after winning the Ulster title. Rustiness was something Malachy O'Rourke had mentioned, but they were fairly disciplined apparently over Christmas. They trained quite a bit over Christmas. They were vulnerable as well. Mike Cullen turned them over in their own 45 a couple of times, led to points or scoreable frees. So there were moments for Glen, and they kept Mike Cullen getting back to within 2 points. But the better team, I think everyone will agree, won on the day, and they're looking to become the first Derry club to lift the Andy Merrigan Trophy since Ballinderry Shamrocks back in 2002, so 21 years ago. And in a fortnight's time is a date with Kilmacud Crokes to look forward to. Kilmacud, of course, who would win the Talton Cup, looking to first of all try and win an All-Ireland Senior Club Championship this year, of course, after the heartache of losing to Kilcoo last year with that last gasp goal. 114 to 14 points win over Cairns O'Reilly's. David Moran, who's been on the show with us, Ger, was brilliant for Cairns O'Reilly's. His high fielding was something to behold on the Croke Park turf, but Kilmacud just had too much. Interestingly, Paul Mannion named on the bench for Kilmacud yesterday evening. Didn't come on, and I heard Robbie Brennan, the Kilmacud manager, kind of talking afterwards, saying, we'll see, look, a couple of weeks might be too soon for him, but we'll see. What I was reading from what he was saying was absolutely Paul Mannion will be fit. Essentially, he'll be ready to go in 2 weeks.
All right, you weren't having any of it. No. Robbie Brennan has a screensaver of Kilcoo celebrating on his phone. It's actually the screensaver on his phone of Kilcoo celebrating last year. So it's a good line from Sean Moore in the Irish Times. Crokes manager Robbie Brennan looked like he'd seen a ghost. Was last February on his mind? Because obviously, as you say, at the very last second of the game yesterday, a free gets floated in to the edge of the box, and David Moran gets his hand to it, and it gets a bit of a ricochet, and one of the Crokes defenders is on the line to catch the ball under his own crossbar. Now, there was enough bodies there that it would have been like the end of all endings if they had managed to come back from the 6 points down that they had been. So I think they probably deserved to win the game, Crokes. Yeah,
they did. The only thing I would say about Crokes is that there were some worrying signs, and maybe Crokes, when Robbie Brennan will see that as a positive, something to work on. But
when they were 6 points up, there was a goal chance that would have made it.
There's 7 points up at 1 point with 10 minutes left,
and rather than tap it over the bar, they went for the goal that was going to kill the game. And you think, okay, that's the killer instinct that you want in your team. I don't know. I wouldn't be too pissed off at them going for the goal. It was a good save, and then all of a sudden it's like, the ball is being sucked into the net. So look, I'm sure Glen are delighted that you keep banging the drum for them. I'm sure that they're like, no, shut up, Shane. Yeah. Shut up.
Just waiting for the text.
We're supposed to be under the radar here, and you're like, this is the greatest manager of all time.
Well, I think he's proved it. He's taken Glen to an All-Ireland final now, who before this year had never... Imagine taking over a team at the start of a year and they've never won a Derry Championship, and wins a Derry Championship, wins an Ulster, gets the All-Ireland final. There's no ceiling for this Glen team. They're brilliant. Their age profile is very good as well. There are some worrying signs with Kilmacud in terms of not being able to kill off games, but I would say Shane Foley and the Cairns goal yesterday saved a lot of goal chances, so Kilmacud could have won by more. But the final's going to be fascinating. Two very defensively solid teams.
Shane Walsh's also good at football.
He's pretty decent, and he had a quiet game yesterday by his standards.
But anytime they needed something, he was available.
He steps up, and then you look at Mannion coming back into the team potentially in 2 weeks' time. That's going to be a final for the ages, I think. So looking forward to that one. Glen versus Kilmacud Crokes. We'll move on to the other green now for the performance rankings.
Sorry, one last thing. We wanted to do the pitch invasion there. We're going to show the...
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry, Fussa. I forgot to mention Fussa, the Club GAA. So there was a false alarm first of all, and then of course the final whistle does ring out.
I think it's all over. It is now.
David Clifford, needless to say, is the man in red there as the fans head over. I mean, Clifford making the point, speaking with Aisling after the game, that outside of Kerry, the fans aren't used to it. You know, when he's in Kerry now, maybe there's less kids than that running over to him. But this was it Mullingar? It was outside of Munster anyway. So clearly a lot of youngsters who've never got the chance to maybe see David Clifford play in person, straight over to him to get the autographs and the selfies. And I don't know if kids go for autographs or selfies now, or ask for, or maybe they just try and get a glove or something off him, do they? Or all of the above.
Jersey.
Yeah, it gives you a jersey there. A great performance. Paulie Clifford was brilliant, and Fossa were just dominant against Castletown, and they go on to play Stewartstown now. And
I did see somebody on Twitter go, is this the first time there's been a proper superstar in GA? I've never seen this before. I'm like, really? This happens? This has been happening my entire life.
Yeah, it's a generational thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it happens all the time, yeah.
Gooch Cooper was one.
Well, I remember queuing for Jack O'Shea's. The All-Stars played 2 challenge matches, hurling and football, in Thurles as a fundraiser in the 80s, and I remember queuing for ages for Jack O'Shea's autograph. Like,
he was your one.
Or whoever, you know.
I understand how those young kids feel. Like, those young kids run onto the pitch. I remember meeting Michael Donnellan when I was a kid, and a Monaghan man, but dad from Dunmore in Galway, and Donnellan. I was just of that age in 98 and 01 where I was susceptible to.
Well, Donnellan was like an absolute superstar, where there was just this kind of, this guy can do stuff we've never seen before. But like, as a kid,
yeah,
you know. Whereas like older generations are like, there was a fella who did the same thing in the 70s and 80s. That's just how it goes.
It's always people looking
back.
But
this isn't, what I'm saying, this isn't new, and it's great. That's all.
100%. I remember meeting Donnellan in Healy Park in Oma after Galway Tyrone League game in 03 or 04, I think, and I nearly fainted. Like, meeting this man in person, I was like, oh my God.
What did you say to him?
Can you sign my programme? There was a lovely photograph of Donnellan in the programme, and he was almost embarrassed. If you've ever met Michael, he's quite a shy guy, but I can understand the David Clifford mania. So yeah, Fossa Stewartstown is a big one in the junior final, by the way. Stewartstown, is it Gareth Devlin, I think, is the old guy in that team. He's a bit of a veteran, scored 1-6 of their 114 against Clifton in their semi-final yesterday. They have been intermediate recently enough in the Tyrone Championship, so that Fossa Stewartstown game again is a big one. So looking forward to these club finals. They're set up quite nicely. Finally in green this morning, and I think rightly so. We started with the FA Cup, and we'll finish with the FA Cup. The Irish in the FA Cup, getting good headlines. The Wolves-Liverpool game, I think, is one where we should mention. Really good performance by Nathan Collins, albeit he had one clearance kind of across the pitch that was passed directly to Trent Alexander-Arnold, which led to the Darwin Nunez goal. Couldn't have done a whole pile about it.
He is man of the match, yeah.
Deservedly so. And Joe Hodge as well, you know, someone who stood out for you, Ger. Just a solid performance from a lot of Irish players at the weekend. You saw Promise O'Mashare scoring the goal for Fleetwood Town in a bit of an upset win for them as well. They beat QPR. QPR apparently have the worst record of any team in the FA Cup third round, which is quite a stat. But a big one for them. And that they're Fleetwood now beyond the third round for the first time in their history. Former youth international Promise O'Mashare as well. Shane Long, really in the years.
Shane Long.
I mean,
and then the draw. They're going to
Old Trafford.
Yeah,
that's going to be decent.
Yeah.
Paul Ince, isn't it, in charge of Reading as well? So there's a few strands to that one. The draw, I think City fans and Arsenal fans will have been looking at the draw going, no. Obviously Arsenal have to get past Oldham tonight, but the winner of Arsenal Oldham plays Man City in the fourth round. So City will have probably had to have got past Chelsea and Arsenal to make the fifth round of the Cup, which is quite extraordinary. But yeah,
Jason Knight scored. James Collins scored as well for Derby. There was loads of good. The FA Cup is an opportunity for a lot of Irish players. You kind of felt like maybe it might be an opportunity for Caoimhín Kelleher.
Yeah.
A lot of conversation in the aftermath of the fact that he wasn't getting in the team for the Cup. Something changed. Is it just they needed extra game time? They wanted some confidence in the defence. What's going on? Why wasn't he playing?
Very surprised.
And whether or not that will lead to some conversations in January for him, I don't think it will. He seems happy enough being part of that first team squad as opposed to playing first team football at the moment. But good win for Southampton in the Cup, an opportunity for them to maybe cast off the shackles, made some big saves was the report that I read as well. So yeah, not bad. Irish players in the Cup in green. Maybe we're reaching, you get to decide. It's the Gillette Labs performance rankings every Monday. We put a box up on Sunday evening on Instagram, but in the meantime, of course, you can tweet us at Off The Ball AM if there's anybody you think should be in green, in amber or in red.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.